since reading this, all I've wanted was to continue the story, to track down, oh my God, I can't, my brain just shut down. Hold on, this is where we edit to track down. Fuck. All right. Buzz babies. All right, buzz babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. It's bigger, better, awesomer now because I get to edit it. I know you all might miss me live. We'll still be back sometimes. It's fine. I've still got awesome comics to talk about, awesome creators to interview, and today I've got a couple gems, folks. I've got comics, Sean Von Gorman and Mr. Joey Esposito. They are the creators of Magma Comix' Pedestrian. If you guys aren't into Magma Comix, you're not into good comics, and you need to fix that. I'll wait for you to fix it right now. I'm just kidding. Let's bring these guys out. What is up? Oh my God.
I didn't realize there's gonna be sound effects.
Calm.
This is great,
everybody. It's just
that's a private conversation.
What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. I'm very excited. I've been aware of you guys for a while. I know I gave Sean probably the best pull quote I've given of my career, because I told him that when they did Ghost Planet, I said it was like Junji Ito in space, and they both of them really liked that. I think Scout liked it too. Scout might have retweeted it a few times, but that's how I stumbled across Sean. Joey, you've been around. You guys have worked together before. You guys have done this crazy comic book experience, and now you guys are back together again. And as I found out in the green room, and as we talked about, comics is a slow moving train, right? So it's, even though it seems like this is a new book from this hot new publisher, right? This is actually a thing you guys have been working on for a while. So this seems like this kind of came out of that quarantine comic book craze. But so you guys did Pawn Shop and just couldn't quit each other. Had to linger.
We met in 2012. Yeah. It's been 12 years of making comics together.
Nice.
And I feel like we've been doing stuff that consistently that whole time, even though there's only been Pawn Shop, which came out in 2015, and now the Pedestrian, but we've been working on it consistently. But as is so often the case in comics, like the things that come out is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then there's everything else that's going on underneath the surface.
Mm-hmm. Well, both of you guys do a lot. You've done a lot, away from each other too. Like Joe, you did the Batman Urban Legends, which is a very cool kind of anthology series. They're kind of doing it with the Batman Brave and the Bold now. I think it's cool. It seems like they try to bring in some it's not just a big name, everybody who's already working at DC. They try and kind of branch out and reach out and find, not always new voices, but established voices that haven't had the attention they deserve. I think it's kind of cool what they do. How'd you get wound up in that project?
So actually Pawn Shop kind of got me into the last DC Comics Writers Workshop that they did. This was in 2017. So it was a program with Scott Snyder was like the teacher, and sort of working with him week to week to learn the ins and outs of working in the DC universe. And it was really a great experience. And that was my first published DC credit, was a Catwoman story that came out of that program. And then, it was a couple of years of not much. And then some editors reached out and asked me to pitch for Urban Legends. And I did a short 10-page Batman Plastic Man team up with Jason Howard. That was really fun. Mm-hmm. And then, I think I did a pretty good job, and they liked working with me, and it just kind of kept going. And, Urban Legends was a series that just provided that opportunity, I think, like you mentioned, that doesn't really exist so much as it used to. I think back to when I was a kid and there was Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, that was like a rotating cast of creators all the time, just telling sort of evergreen stories, and Urban Legends functioned like that in a lot of ways. So that was cool. But yeah, it was really fun. But, my heart is in creator owned books, and working on Pedestrian with Sean is kind of my ideal version of what making comics is like.
Yeah, when it's your baby, it's different, right? You know, if it's someone else's baby, yeah, you know, especially if it's like a baby from Gotham, you want to do right by it, you know, but it's not your baby, you know, when and the
Batman
pedestrian. But yeah, the pedestrian is very much your baby. And let me just start off with a hot take. Your baby's fucking weird, but I love it. It's so weird.
That's the cover quote.
I love it so much. I had no idea what to expect, right? Very much just vibe cover. Some of the sample art I'd seen, Madman vibes, which I'm, you know, that you're good vibes to have, right? You know, but it's still Madman was also very quirky and weird, but this is different. This is like, I don't know. Like, you're messing with it. When you all read this, I know this is going to drop before the book comes out, so I don't want to spoil anything, but I do want to like blatantly remind everybody that you need to pre-order it because you really need to read this book. But it's where did the idea come from? I know Pawn Shop had this kind of like Crash the movie vibe, right? These people, you know, like these people in the city coming together in different ways in their lives, and we're doing this now with this kind of this. Is he a superhero? Is he a fucking robot? Is he an alien? I don't even know what he is. He's a thing in a suit, and he respects the laws of travel. I'm gonna quit talking. Tell me where this idea came from, guys.
Yeah, so I've been playing around with this character design, where I thought it'd be funny if there was like a superhero based on that little blinking man in the walking sign, but had no powers. And I thought it'd be really funny if there was like a costumed hero, kind of like the Flash, but he can't run and he just like kind of just power walks everywhere. And I had sort of this image of him stopping a mugging. And that's all I could really think of with it, other than that just being a recurring bit of like fighting crime in real time, but not ever breaking the law. So I had reached out to Joey after doing Pawn Shop and remembered how great Joey is at writing real rich characters, and I needed help sort of filling up this world because I've had just this guy, and maybe there's some sort of ancient war brewing linked to the secret history of street signs. Like, what if street signs have power? Like, why do you stop at a street sign? Because you've been told, or is it some lost human knowledge? And we'd come up with 5 pages that were, in a pitch. And we kind of shopped that around for a little while, and then COVID happened. And this was the first time either of us had had a long break in a long time where we can just kind of focus on just work. And I got to put my kids in bed every day and just work on comics without any distractions. And so we said, fuck it, let's just make a web series. Because then we were getting into webtoon stuff at the time. Another book I was working on, Ghost Planet, started as a webtoon thing. Like, oh, this is great. We could do like faux animation of this fella just walking in real time that you could never do in a book because it'd be just too expensive and stupid. And we kind of worked on that in secret for a year. We didn't show anybody, just full vacuum, free of ego, just bringing our best ideas to each other, figuring out like, why does this guy exist? Why is this? Well, who does he fight? Well, does he fight? Does he touch anybody? And then a lot of 2020 kind of seeped into what we were working on, issues like social justice, isolation, partisanship, neighborhoods being destroyed from within, sort of the lines that you see in the world now of like, you have to be very far away on a chosen side. You can't really walk a line anymore. And we kind of thought, would it be cool if there was a superhero of color who doesn't use violence to solve problems? And that's kind of where a lot of this comes up, because how many times has someone saved your life without beating the shit out of a bunch of people? Probably more than anything else. Yeah. And also, if someone's wearing a costume and they're coming at you and they touch you, that fella has committed a crime and he's going to jail.
And I think, to Sean's point, like one of the things that I love about this book is really sort of the nuance that exists in human nature, which often doesn't exist in the discourse, like good people who do bad things and vice versa. Like that is what happens in real world life. Right. Mm-hmm. And so applying that to our characters and, especially as the series goes on, I think it's not right or wrong. It's not black and white as much as it might seem. The rules maybe are flexible, even if the pedestrian isn't. And I think like exploring that is really interesting. But it's also for me, I as I was writing this, I discovered a lot of deep-seated stuff brewing inside of myself about my hometown. And, like, I think everyone can relate to like wanting to escape your hometown to a degree, except if you're a New Yorker like Sean, who, where you love it constantly. And, but, growing up in like a small town where, my town was sort of like in the late 80s, devastated by a major corporation leaving. And there was lots of layoffs and like just kind of the mall came in and decimated our downtown, like real classic kind of small town stuff. And you grow up in this place where everyone is telling you like, you got to get out. There's nothing for you here. You gotta work really hard and get the hell out of here. So you have the opportunities that you want. Mm-hmm. But like growing up hearing that, you kind of, it seeps into you, it's like, this place is kind of doomed and I'm stuck here. Why would you want to try to make it better if you're just planning on ditching it this second you can, Yeah. And a lot of that sort of worked its way into the pedestrian in our town of Summer City. You'll see throughout the book, there's lots of like store closure signs and all the characters kind of have different relationships to it. But then to have the pedestrian show up and kind of offer something new or maybe a glimmer of hope, I think is kind of where we kick things off.
I like how you mentioned that a lot of like your real life and how the geography kind of became its own story and its own character, how that kind of seeped in, because everything does feel very alive. And even though there is like a quirkiness and a humor to it, it's never outlandish, which I think it makes it even more compelling, honestly, because it makes this, I don't know, it adds this layer of intrigue, where I was just like, when I read this, I was just, as a consumer, I would just be like, oh my God, I can't wait to read the next issue. And then as press, when I read this, I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk to these motherfuckers and be like, explain to me what's happening. Cause I get that normal people don't. Right. But there is this, I read it and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted more of it. I wanted more of this character, more of this world. I wanted, the maliciousness and the terror side of it, kind of, right, that we get a glimpse of right in the end. I want more of that. And there's this really intriguing aspect of like, the whole deal of like vigilantism. Right, I said that, maybe I said it wrong. For the whole deal of being a vigilante is that's against the law, right? So you're upholding the law by breaking it. There's this automatic conundrum that you're in, right? And it's whatever, we're not here to talk philosophy. We're here to talk comic books. But there's this interesting notion that I kind of picked up in this first issue, where it's like, what does it mean when a superhero is so rigid and so lawful that like they can't even uphold the law efficiently in instances where they would kind of have to break it themselves? I'm talking about the wallet being returned, and that's all I'll say. But like, I'm very interested to see that explored. You have a wildly fascinating cast of characters in here. I want to know more about all of them, but the pedestrian, this protagonist, like I said, like, I don't know what he is. I don't know if he's human, if he's what, but I know I'm hooked on one issue. I know I gotta know more. I gotta go down this rabbit hole. Is what right now, like, is it is this like a 4, 5, 6? Is it a small, or you guys got bigger plans for it? Is it like, what's the plan for this?
We are greenlit for 4 issues
Okay.
as a miniseries. If we can get the numbers to where they would need to be, we have the ability to have this be an ongoing.
Nice.
If Magma, we discuss it with Magma, we have 3 arcs. The first arc, we're kind of settling on the final details of the last issue. Joey just sent me a breakdown this morning. I did see it. I will get to it, Joey. Thank you. I'm in 2 is done. 2 kind of completely breaks the cookie jar of issue 1, so to speak. So we kind of set up the world, and then we kind of break the world a little bit in a very David Lynchian way, where it's just, it's I think Twin Peaks was definitely a big inspiration, like Twin Peaks, Ghostbusters.
I'm so excited, Sean Von Gorman and Joey Esposito.
Yeah, and thanks, then man. I think also a big part, I think for me, is Ghostbusters, because I think Ghostbusters is the best comedy because it's a believable world. The world is real. We establish a real world, except for this one weird thing about the world. and this person that we have is going to have to save us somehow. And this person does not seem like someone in a position to like save the world. But maybe is this a low stakes story, or have the stakes never been higher ever?
You'll find out in issue 2, I would say. And also, like, to Sean's point of, like, I love that you referenced Ghostbusters, because in my mind, I think of another 80s classic that I love, which is Mannequin, which doesn't have the world-ending stakes, but in terms of the characters, and I think we do this in the book, the characters all like kind of get on board pretty quickly with like the one weird thing that's going on. In in Ghostbusters, it's the paranormal. In Mannequin, it's an ancient Egyptian princess who comes back to life as a mannequin for Andrew McCarthy. But like everyone around him is like, that's weird, but okay, I'll help you or whatever. And that's kind of the vibe that I was going for in the Pedestrian, like tying it back into the mundane nature of living in a town like that. Like you're kind of desperate for something to shake up your life and get out of the patterns and the routines, the directions that all the street signs are always sending you in, that you're like, this is weird, but okay, sure, I'm in, and I think that's where we find some of these characters with the book kicking off.
There's a magic in that. And the when you like find that normalcy, but right, that like that connective tissue of like human everydayness, and then you can like you said, like Ghostbusters did that. It was the world we live in if there were these entities in it, right? And but it was everything else was normal. It was these guys, and they're single, and they all they're nerds, and they also like they want to meet a girl, and they also okay, we got to save the city too. It was just this weird thing, and it all made sense. You know what else is funny about that? That reminds me of Ghostbusters is for the longest time I watched that as a kid. Like it was like we loved it, and then like the cartoon came and everything. It wasn't until like maybe a few years ago that I realized that like I spent a large portion of my childhood watching Dan Aykroyd get blown by a spirit. And like I never really knew what was going on in that scene, right? I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is funny. I don't know.
We got a silly ghost. He's stealing my pants. So no,
it's not scary. It's not, but then when I was older, and I was like, oh my god, and I was just like, all tons of kids watch that movie. We're just,
you know what? I think that kind of stuff is important, and I think like watching something that's slightly maybe too mature for you, and you don't totally get it, but then as you grow up and you sort of understand, I don't know. I think that adds a lot to like your perception of things in art. And I think that, something that Sean and I talked a lot about in this book was like the level of cursing, which, I tend to put in a lot of F-bombs because I speak that way.
Yeah.
But, as people were seeing the ash can and a lot of reaction from younger people. And so like, I would say this book is a PG-13, which is appropriate to me for kids because I grew up watching PG-13 movies and I turned out Okay.
I heard Star-Lord say fuck on a movie that had a Disney title on it. So
and like that, I think that's like kind of lame, to be honest. Like it's a little too far.
Been the response we've had on this, because we've been touring with these ash cans on our tables for a while. Like we did C2E2 last year. I think that was Joey's first experience of like that. It hasn't been a hard sell. I've just had kind of this banner up. I've had the book on the table. We have an animated trailer, which I think we have a clip. I think we have a clip. Let's roll a clip.
Yep. We put the clip. There we go.
Great clip. But people just walk over and like, what is this? Can you tell me about this?
Nice.
And there was they'll either give us their email address, or they'll buy a copy of a 6-page comic just because this guy is on the cover. And there's this woman at New York a couple years ago who had a cane, and she came over to the table and she said, "Excuse me, is this man jaywalking?" And I said, "Oh, no, this is actually a hero in a costume who never breaks the law to fight crime." And she goes, "Oh, wow, that's really great, because I jaywalked once and I got hit by a car, and that's why I have this cane.
Oh shit!
I would like a copy, please." And that's when I kind of knew. I was like, "Oh my god,
we're onto something." Hell yeah!
We kind of came into this with like a perfect certainty of this is going to work. And I was telling Joey, like, when we first started doing this, like, we're going to make this book. I don't know how it's going to happen, but after that first year of starting to show people, like the first person we showed it to was Dean Haspiel. Wanted to ask him to do a cover, and then he said, "This is amazing. I will definitely do a cover." And then we were talking about Madman. I was talking about how much Madman is in the DNA of this, because like what we're doing with this book, Madman to Mike Allred is the comic he's always wanted to make. So Madman is whatever the hell Mike Allred wants to do or be, is in that book. It's rock and roll. It's a guy superhero. It's groovy, hot women, just whatever, spaceships, whatever. That's kind of the same mentality we had here. And talking about that, Dean was like, well, I know Allred. And I'd met him once a couple years ago, back when I was doing a book about Harry Houdini. My thing was, it was my first book, so we got a little weird with, trying to get notice and attention. So I would go around and like do big public stunts, and I would break out of straitjackets at comic shows, and I would walk up to someone I admired, and I'd be like, "Hi, I love you. My name's Sean. Would you like to put me in a straitjacket?" And I asked this of Mike Allred one day, and he's sitting at his table with his lovely wife Laura, and we're just talking, showing him my book, and I was like, "Would you want to put me in a straitjacket?" And he looked up and went, "That'll be great. Let's do it. Let's do it tomorrow." And so he said, I'll have a long line tomorrow. Come down. We'll entertain the line, whatever. So we came down and we're doing a recording of it. And I'm pretending like I don't know who he is. Like, and who are you, young man? And what do you do for a living? And he had this look on his face of like, I'm Mike Allred, and I make comic books. And he just had the look on his face of like the certainty and the joy he had of like, I write and draw comic books. Something about that energy really latched on to me. I've never forgotten that. I knew when I had the right project, I was going to hit up Mike Allred for a cover for it. And this was the one.
Wow.
And I sent him what we had so far. Dean knew Mike. He set up the interview, and I'm writing to Mike Allred. Mike, you may not remember me. My name is Sean Gorman. You put me in a straitjacket once. And he writes back, of course I remember.
That's a hard thing to forget. Yeah.
Never put anyone. Well, I don't know, Mike.
Solid marketing and branding, by the way, Sean. Like I used to introduce myself to icons of the industry by having them straitjacket me at conventions. No one's ever going to forget that.
Like, the first time I met Sean, he was in a straitjacket.
That's true. You were doing press at the time, and I was a very pushy young creator. And I was hitting you up to do like something about the book. I think you would put out a call for artists that I had answered. And I was like, "Oh, you do press? Would you mind maybe doing something here?" And you told me a very polite no of like how you don't kind of like mix those worlds for journalistic integrity. And I wasn't kind of like taking that for an answer and kind of pushed back a little bit. And then like, well, you know what? I'm happy to maybe put this through, but maybe we don't work right now. And I kind of felt like a dick about it. I was like, you know what? I said I was going to do this. Let's do this. It wasn't that project, but that directly led to us doing Pawn Shop.
I've been in those situations with pushy press or both pushy press and pushy creators now, right? Because of what I do now, like I get and pushy printers and those are the people you really don't want to fucking piss off. That's what I've learned in my 1 year. Don't,
then you're not getting your book
with the printer. Yeah, like you get them everything they want when they want it, formatted exactly like no that. Like, I don't know a lot about this industry, folks, but like, I guarantee you, if you take what I just said and carry that with you into your comic book journey, there's going to be a point in your life, probably several times, where you're like, I'm really glad I did everything the printer wanted and didn't make them mad. Anyway.
Yeah, I had no idea going into comics, the level of politics that exists in comics. I thought you just make a comic book and then you become rich and famous. Like, no, it's like Game of Thrones, but with very low stakes of a world that like most of the world is just not even aware of. It's like
who are these people? Why are they mad?
It's like a really rough clique of like a high school you never heard of.
But that's like, so your attitude towards that is one of the reasons I love working with you, Sean, is because I think that, we have a long history, started out, I don't know, not rocky.
I was about to say rocky.
I think we both had some like personal life stuff that was just like in shambles that we were just like bleeding into our creative work. But I think we figured it out.
Making art.
From
our pain.
But I think that Sean has a this like magician showmanship
Mm.
about him that I really appreciate. And I mean this like affectionately, but like it's kind of like a carny attitude towards selling books and stuff, like especially at shows. And I think like he and I both take the work very seriously, but maybe everything around it, like the bullshit, is just kind of like, yeah, you have to deal with it. But like, you know, I don't think either of us are in this for egotistical reasons or like fame, despite what his sunglasses might suggest.
You have misread me.
He literally like just said like, I thought you just made a comic book and got rich and famous.
No, I think well, we had a very me and my previous writing partner, TV's Todd Hunt, who we wrote Secret Adventures of Houdini with. We had a very strange introduction into comics, where we were working at a hotel, and we just had an idea of like what would be the coolest comic book we could think of, and we were like, we should do a comic book about Harry Houdini, because there are very few people who are as interesting as him. And at the time, there had been almost zero comics featuring Harry Houdini, who was probably as close to Batman as you'll ever find. And then during our time at this very bougie, high-end hotel, we kind of stumbled across Rich Ross, who was the then head of Disney Pictures, and we'd been friendly with him. He had liked both of us, and that hotel had hired me to do a mural for the building that he had happened to see. I'm kind of standing at work one day when he kind of stumbled upon this piece of art that I'd made and was commenting to like one of the managers there, and he goes, "Oh, who did this wonderful piece of art?" And like, "Oh, Sean did that." And he turns to me and he goes, "You're an artist?" And I said, "This is a moment that would change my life," where I very confidently said, "Yes, and I also have a comic book that I wrote with Todd, and we'd love for you to see it." And he said, "That'd be great." So then we're like, "Oh shit." Okay, so we had a very cool packaging. We had this very cool envelope that we had custom made, and this little ash can we had this like supernatural adventure story about Harry Houdini, where I was at the time, learning how to do a straitjacket, because you go to comic shows and you see the same party in a different town. It's all tables, people who are typically pretty awkward sitting at a table going, and just feeling very just like awkward in general, and thinking, we don't like that. Like, who's going to come out and see us at this thing? So like a day later, he goes, "Hey, I loved this book. I don't do too much of the publishing side of it, but we just bought Marvel. I can make some phone calls for you."
Wow.
And that doesn't happen. Where he's like, "Yeah, I'll just call Marvel Comics for you and set up a meeting." And sure enough, we get a phone call a couple days later from Axel Alonso's assistant. I'm like, "Hey, so this is Axel Alonso's assistant. We want to see if you have some time to meet with Axel at Marvel." And it took every ounce of self-control to like not just quit my job right there, because that's not a phone call you get. And we went to Marvel and we had a nice chat with Axel Alonso, who had already read the book and had notes for us. And the first thing he said was, "Thank you so much for sending me a comic, because I don't get to read comics anymore." And that blew our tiny minds. You're like, "You're the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics." And like, no, they don't get to read comics. They see comics in different forms, and then they get assembled elsewhere, and they don't worry about them anymore because they have another project coming up. And he gave us some notes that we incorporated into another edition of the book. At the same time, Forbidden Planet in New York City called us to like order books, because someone had wandered in and heard about the book we were making and they didn't have it. So they called us, and we had maybe 3 copies to our names. We're like, "Okay, how many you want?" I'm like, "Oh, well, we'll take 3 copies." And like, "Oh, how about 5?" And they're like, "Okay, cool." So we had to steal one back from like my mom and my grandma. Like, "We'll get these back to you." And then we bring the books, and I, very confidently saying, "These may not be here very long," because we had rigged it, because we had put out like a call of like a contest of like, if you buy the book and get a picture of yourself with the book, there will draw you into the next book or something. So the books were gone in like an hour. People showed up immediately.
Nice.
They were getting phone calls. People were in the store. This is back when Matt Rosenberg was working retail, and that's how I met him way back in the day, before the fame. And he was like something like he was trying to read the book. He had a copy under the register. When someone came to ask for it, he didn't even have a chance to read it. So then they're like, "Hey, let's take some more." And like, well, we don't have any, and this is why, because we have a new edition coming out. They're like, well, what if we do an event at the store when it comes out? And they're like, cool, what do you want to do? And just off the top of my head, I go, I don't know, what if we like chain me to the outside of the store or something? And they go, great, let's do it. And like, oh, okay, cool. So then we get the books. I call Forbidden Planet, and I'm looking at the weather. This is like February. I'm looking at the weather reports, and Tuesday is supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful day. And I reach out, hey, maybe we do this on Tuesday. And they go, no, let's do it Wednesday. It's New Comic Day. I'm like, okay, cool. It rained the entire day. And I can't back out of it because Bleeding Cool had done a story about it. Neil Gaiman had like posted about the story. We'd become friendly with Neil Gaiman working at the same hotel. So we did not have a normal introduction into this world. We stumbled into this, and like the biggest names are like, yeah, go do that. So we're like, we need to match this level of what the hell is going on. So I'm now outside Forbidden Planet, handcuffed to a light pole, shucking books, telling people about this, doing this thing. And we knew it would be a weird day because it's New York City. It's like right off of Union Square. We're in the public. I can't go anywhere. We didn't realize that like immediately we would come across a crazy person. Like the first guy was like this crazy homeless guy. We like start talking. We run out of things to talk about. We told him our entire life story. He's just kind of staring, kind of like looking at us. And then when I stopped talking, he like looks past my sunglasses and he was like, "Nah, you're not Houdini." And I'm like, no, I'm not Harry Houdini, but I do this comic about Harry Houdini. He goes, "Oh, you do comics?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is what I've been telling you about." He goes, "Check it, I do comics." I'm like, "Cool, man." And realize I'm chained to a pole. I can't just walk away. I have to be nice to this guy. I'm like, "What kind of stuff?" He goes, "Go check it. I'm a character who's the daughter of Batman and Catwoman." And so this is maybe 10 years ago. We're like, anything like the Huntress? He's like, "Nah, who's that?" we're like, well, DC Comics, who owns these characters, has been kind of doing something exactly like that for like 30 years now. And he goes, "What? Where are these comics?" I'm like, "Oh, well, there is a comic shop right there you can go into." And that went on for 8 hours. And then that's how I got my first book published. So there is, yeah, my introduction to comics was weird because then we're like, oh, what are we going to do to get people to come see us at shows? And that's when we started doing the street jacket thing of like, I never want to leave my house, but I would come out and see that of someone trying to break out of a straight jacket. And that kind of opened up weird doors because you're doing this performance thing on top of comics, where I think that's a little bit of the failed magician energy that Joey's talking about.
I didn't say failed magician. I just said magician.
I kind of picture like Joe from Arrested Development of like, that's where the swagger is coming.
Right.
Where it's like, yes, he's not the best magician, but you can't deny that he's confident.
Right. Exactly. Confidence is all that matters.
It is very important. Just like the table presence I've like in the pictures and stuff I've seen when you post up at cons and stuff. I mean the sunglasses, the button ups that you have, the fucking stand ups. Like I love it when you take pictures next to the stand up. I live for that shit. I mean like, but it's very like smart branding, but it's like, I mean, it also just seems like fun.
Well, you have to also like keep it entertaining for yourself because if you're doing a lot of shows, I don't do a lot of shows anymore, but like at a certain point, they all look the same and they all feel the same. And, it's just like you can only eat chicken fingers from the concession stand so many times. So you just kind of have to keep it like a little bit loose for yourself, I think.
Yeah, I was at a show a couple weeks ago, and I had done some art for Matt Cave's King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. That it's supposed to be a pinup, but then they the licensor liked it so much they put it on the back cover. So they sent me a box of them. So I really didn't know what to do with them, and then I figure I'll try and sell them. And then I had this like plastic medieval sword in my house, and like, oh, I got an idea. So what I started doing was, whenever I would just be holding the sword when someone comes over to the table, and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And like tell them about the book. Like, I'm doing this book, and I'll knight anyone for free if you buy the book. They're like, oh, that sounds great. So they would buy the book, and then I would have them kneel down, and I'd be like, what's your favorite 80s show? And the guy's like, Transformers. Like, oh, cool. Who's your favorite Transformer? Goes, Optimus. I'm like, okay, then rise, Sir Optimus. He gets up with like this newfound confidence. Like, how you feel? Like, I feel great. And we did that several times. Where Joe Corello, the writer, was there, he would send people over to get knighted, and be like, "Hey, I got my book." Like, yeah, come right over. Here you go, buddy, and off you go. But yeah, it's a mundane party. It's the same gray building in different towns. It's the same people you see, the same setup, the same. Yeah, either people who are very enthusiastic about what you're doing and want to come meet you, or there's a 5-year-old who just could not care less about you, like looking at your work. Of like, you should have Iron Man on these. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then some adult will say the same thing. They're like, okay, thank you.
Oh shit!
I'm working on it.
I should have Iron. I'm sorry, I didn't think that. Like, hindsight's 2020, you little asshole. No.
Yeah, I have an uncle who's on the spectrum, and I think my first book had come out. And he's looking at it. He had showed up at a signing, and I didn't see him in years. And he's a big guy. He's like a gentle giant who kind of roams the world, trolling comic shops, rolling through dollar bins. And he was just there at a place in Staten Island. And like, you know Jimmy? Like, how do you know Jimmy? And like, he's my uncle. Like, Jimmy has a family? He's like reading it. He's like trying to like be supportive. And he goes, have you ever thought about doing some work for Marvel Comics? Maybe drawing some like Venom or the Punisher? Like, working on it. I am trying.
Did you let him know you've done a whole shit ton of Star Trek covers?
The Pedestrian's kind of how I got into the Star Trek stuff, because Heather Antos
nice.
Had reached out. I've been friends with Heather forever. She had reached out when we had pitched it to IDW about like, hey, we're interested in this. Do you want to talk about some more? And then in that talk, we were in consideration for a hot minute for a couple of months. A couple years ago. So we've been making the rounds with publishers, and there are publishers who have passed for it's not for them. It's a weird work. It's very strange, and it's not saying that people don't enjoy it, but I think publishers are not confident in how they would position it in the best way to get it to the people who need to see it, and that's a fair no. But we were talking with Heather at the time. And she had casually mentioned, like, oh, I'm doing Star Trek books now. And then, like, my eyes kind of, like, went white for, like, a second. And, like, it's like in Saving Private Ryan when a grenade or shell goes off and you just hear that ringing for a second. It was like that, where it was like, Heather, we need to have a separate conversation. Because I had, up until that point, been very closeted with my love of Star Trek. Because I think only until very recently, that's been something you can, like, whip out in a crowd and be like, oh, that's cool. And then I sent her like
very interesting terminology you're using in this scenario.
Excuse me.
No unsolicited Trek pics. All right. No,
Joe and I were having a conversation at C2E2 sort of like about where we are in our careers. And Joey is doing a lot of fantastic stuff, and he's getting the opportunity to play in sandboxes of other people's stuff, and he's been working no one really knows how long Joey's been working at this. Like, there's a moment when a lot of these guys are going up in DC. Joey was like on the cusp of that, and it didn't quite work out. And I think, he's been working to like, still move forward, and he's still doing work. And we were having a moment where he was like, we were kind of commiserating, and he was kind of, like, I'm doing these Batman stories, and I don't really know what the next thing's going to be. And I was like, I mean, Joey, not everyone gets to do Batman. I was talking with Dave Bullock, who had worked on a lot of the Batman animated stuff, and was good friends with Darwin Cook, and he directed the animated adaptation of
New Frontier.
The New Frontier. I was congratulating him. He was doing a Batman black and white book. I was like, oh, that's so great. You get to do Batman. And he goes, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, get to do Batman, and that's their job. And then some people get to do Batman once. And at that point, Joey had done Batman twice. And in one of those stories, he had Batman riding a killer whale. And I said to Joey, what more are you looking to do with this character? You've done it. You've written Batman. It's done. What do you want to do now? They can't take that away from you because it exists. Maybe you'll do some more. That's fine, but you've done. You can check that off. In your credits, you can say Batman Urban Legends for as long as you want, until you do something that you feel should go in that bracket. A lot of the whole thing of the Showman Gorman of comics thing, that comes from going to industry parties and people wanting to put a label on you of like what you're looking to do. And when you're breaking into comics, you're assuming that you must work for Marvel and draw Spider-Man, or else you're not really a comic artist. And so I was probably chasing things that I was not ready for or prepared for. And there was a cost to that, where I made a lot of sacrifices. At times I could not afford to make certain sacrifices. And it really took a toll on my personal life. Definitely took a toll on my marriage, where I was really kind of later in life chasing this goofy dream of like traveling and like trying to get my foot in the door on things when I probably wasn't ready for those things or wanted it. And you'd go to these parties and you'd be like, oh, who are you? I'm like, oh, I'm Showman Gorman. And they'd like, of comics. And so I just incorporate that into the name of like Showman Gorman of comics. What's comics? Don't worry about it.
I think that also goes back to kind of what we were talking about before, where like the goal can't be to work on X property or, achieve a certain level of like sales success or whatever. Like all that stuff is great. And if you're into it, do it. But like, I think that conversation that Sean is referencing that we had was like really helpful for me, because I was stuck in a rut a little bit. Like, yes, doing Batman, it was awesome. I'm so grateful. And I love working with DC, but like, that is not something that you can always count on to build a career. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be like a new generation of like people telling new stories with those characters, as there should be. Like, if we were just treading water this whole time, these characters would be long dead. Right. But because they're constantly reinvigorated with fresh voices, I think that's what keeps them relevant. And so like, even if I had found massive success doing that stuff, like that time would end, and then what? And so like, I think the only way to build a real sustainable career in comics, or at least the kind of career that I would like to have, is to focus on creator-owned books. Do the other opportunities as they come along if they are attractive to you. But it's also okay to like turn stuff down if it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's always the money factor. If it's something you need to do because you need the paycheck, that's fine. But like, if you're just wanting to create, I think focusing on your creative partnerships with the artists or the writers that you're working with is really important. And I keep saying, when we're talking about Pedestrian, like, this feels like making a comic book with a friend. Just like, all I want to do is just make cool shit with people that I respect and enjoy working with, And I think like that's really kind of what Pedestrian means for me. And I'm just having so much fun just like talking with Sean, even if like we disagree on something, just like the process of hashing it out, or like finding the compromise in between our two ideas to like move forward,
or the better idea,
and that's the thing. It's like, always the better idea is always going to win. Like, there's no, I don't think either of us would say we have like an ego about the project, as long as it's like in service of the story and the characters and the world that we've built. Like all that stuff is what's most important to me, and anything else that comes from it would be awesome. And, I hope it sells 1 million copies, but like at the end of the day, as long as I'm proud of it, and can like hand it to people with confidence and put it in my little brackets after my name, I'm more than satisfied.
Well, what's nice is that the Magma Comics on their main covers are returnable. So retailers, if you're listening, you could order 4,000 copies, and you can return them if you need to. So that we could just say, yeah, we sold 50,000 copies. Don't worry about the returns. That's Magma's problem. They just said we had to get them in stores. We didn't say we had to sell them.
Wow. That's yeah. I mean, I still stands marketing genius. Magma's never gonna let me talk to any of the creators again.
Good job, Sean.
I think a lot of things were stumbled upon, because I didn't realize that until I was texting I was DMing a comic shop, because a lot of the algorithm's broken, and there needs to be a lot of direct contact. People see your tweets, people see your posts, but they kind of like them and don't really absorb them, or they don't see them at all. So there is several levels of personal connection of getting to your message across. We've been shopping this project around for 5 years. There got to a point where we showed it to every publisher that existed, and it got to a point where it was like, we just kind of probably need to wait for a publisher that doesn't exist yet to be the one for this book. And then Bobby at Magma came out and found me at New York last year. He back when he was at IDW, he remembered the project, and it kind of stuck with him. And he said, we're doing this thing in Magma now. If you have anything to pitch, we'd love to see it. And we're like, we actually still have Pedestrian on the market. And he goes, yeah, I really love that. Please send that over. And everything about what we've been doing with Magma so far has been unbelievably refreshing, in terms of how honest they are about what they think they could pull off, and being realistic about what they think they can't pull off. Because we've been sending, I've been sending a lot of really fucking weird ideas at them, because we're getting ready for San Diego, and they're working on their San Diego project, and they've opened up of like, what do you guys want to do? Of like, be partners with them in this. They're going to spend a stupid amount of money on something, that we're having input about what we think it should be, which I think is fantastic. You don't get that. And even when we were under consideration, Bobby would check in every couple of months, like, hey, we're still thinking about you. We haven't forgotten about you. We're about to launch, they're about to launch their first slate with like the Steve Orlando book. So we're like, we're considering you for like slate 2. We'll get back in touch with you. And then it was kind of at that moment that we're like, because we got to that point with a few different publishers, where it's like, we're on the cusp of something, and you kind of have to let it go, and you're out of control of it. So we kind of put our heads together. We reached out to, like a comics press person. We kind of picked their brain of like, this is kind of what our plan is. What do you think? And we had a couple talks, and they helped us put together like a rudimentary media plan of like what we're going to do. It was like, well, we have our mailing list. These are different things we've done. These are the relationships with stores that we have, that we've already given ash cans to stores, that, there's places who've been very supportive, like the Geekery in New Jersey has been like waiting for years to be able to order this book.
Awesome.
And, all of these pieces that we have, we've just been kind of running on spite and determination of like, this is going to work. Like the animation, I think we have a clip. Let's roll a clip. That's a great clip. That animation that had this guy just walking around, this was after a publisher that we got very close to turned us down, and we were both bummed out about it for one day. And then I woke up the next day and went, fuck those guys. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to teach myself how to do hand cell animation, and every frame of that walking is me drawing that.
Whoa.
And learning how to do that of like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. You're wrong. We're going to do this. And history has proven us right, at least until this point.
The line between confidence and ego, I think, like, you know, I don't think we're egotistical about what we have. I think we understand sort of where we're at career-wise, but also like confident enough in the idea of the book and what we wanted to do. But ultimately, our job is to just make the best book that we can. And I really feel like we're doing that maybe for the first time. You know,
that's awesome.
Like,
listening to you guys both talk, I got a question, because obviously there's a ton of excitement, but like, you know, with the like the reception of the ash can and like moving these at cons and having, you know, knowing like, yeah, people want this, and you know, with all the pitching and everything, and but like now it's finally happening, right? Like it's in previews and you can pre-order. It's going to come out from Magma. Magma has a cool vibe about them right now. Like I'm press, right? I'm also, you know, I also do like the Geek Network shit, and it's like everybody's very interested in Magma. We all want to cover Magma. We all want to make sure we know what, you know, it's like everybody wants to know what Magma's doing. You know, it's like,
yeah, there's definitely an air of mystery when you're a new publisher, and you have a very small time frame to either deliver on that, or it just kind of evaporates.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was saying, like I was emailing them as just like a spitball idea of like, what if at San Diego you just present yourself as a cult of like you come into your booth and it's very new agey, and like, yeah, this is our immoral leader, Denton J. Tipton, of like he knows all. He will guide this ship, and everyone just wears white robes with like a Magma logo on it. We throw pitches into a volcano, and that is literally an email I sent. And Joey was CC'd on it.
That's amazing.
There are a lot of good ideas too, but you know, it doesn't cost a lot of money.
What did they say? Did they respond to it, or they? I got
no, they canceled. They canceled the book.
They are on the West Coast, so there's a little delay, and it's Friday, so maybe Monday.
Oh, you just sent the email. Oh,
I don't send emails as much as I send manifestos of like, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea, well, here's another idea. Where a lot of like stuff that comes to me at night, I'll just jot down in a manic email. A lot of like the world building of pedestrians, like, well, here's how I think this works. This is going to the ancient, you know, we're dealing with an ancient problem linked to the secret history of street signs. So there's a lore to that. There's a world linked to that. So it's like, let's figure this out, and like who the bad guys are, of like, you know, not to spoil anything, but corporations are the bad guys.
I like this book even more now. Joey, you guys have been working together for you know, years now, right? Mm-hmm. So are you like the secret key decoder when you get these Sean crazy email blast, or does he edit them before he sends them to you? Or?
You know, I would say 75% of his texts or emails to me are riddled with typos, which is fine because I learned to like decode that.
Mm-hmm.
And if I really can't, then I'll be like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying.
I've learned to decode his dyslexia.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the key, but I do think that us working together creates something that neither of us could create on our own.
Okay.
And in terms of like, you know, if he sends me a block of text and it's just like some lore ideas and just like stuff that would be in like book 5, like, you know, like I'll present him my ideas also, but like at a certain point you sort of have to make it a story with characters that people relate to, and like how do we see this stuff into what we're doing? So like hopefully we get to these sort of end goals, right? Like of a long tail story, but we have it seeded throughout these first 4 issues at least.
Since reading this, all I've wanted was to continue the story, you know, to track down, oh my God, I can't, my brain just shut down. Hold on, this is where we edit to track down. Fuck. All right. All I wanted to do is finish, is read more from you guys and track down Pawn Shop. Cause that sounds really cool.
If you look at some parts of Pawn Shop, some of that was drawn 4 or 5 years ago. I cleaned up some of the stuff that was really irking to me as an artist, but a lot of stuff has not changed. So definitely in this book, you can see where I've come from and where I'm going. And it was Heather Antos who said, you know, you used to have this really nervous energy about you that's just not there anymore. And there's just like a calmness about you, which is interesting to have pointed out to you. And I do kind of feel that way. I feel probably more comfortable in my own skin.
You've accumulated a fan base, and you guys have your own audiences and fans of your stuff, right? But you know, this ash can craze is a very interesting story, and you know, had to have like all these people are going to get this full issue now. Or obviously you guys are stoked and everything, but is there any, you know, like at a time like this, is there worries, or is there nerves and stuff too? Or
obviously we hope that people like it, but like Sean said, we can't really control that. And I think we're happy with the product, and like, I know it sounds like bullshit, but truthfully, that's all that really matters to me. Like, of course I want it to do well. Of course I want to do more. I want people to really enjoy it. But if I'm happy with how it turned out, that's the only thing I can control, and it's the only thing I'm going to worry about.
Create the things that you want in the world.
For sure.
I mean, like I've heard that.
We have one shot to tell the story we want to tell. And in this first volume, if that's the last part of the story we get to tell right now, that's fine. But if anyone listening to this, if you read this book, and this is something that affects you, and this is something that, you know, you want to root for this guy, and you want to see everyone in this world do okay, join us, follow us, come with us on this story. Because if we get to the end of where the story is going to end up, it's going to be so fucking amazing. Where it's like going to be just wild shit of like metaphysical monster battles of like the likes you've never seen, of like something even from issue 1 to issue 2, it's almost completely different book.
Wow.
And you don't even realize it's happening, because we just kind of take this thing that you were digging, and then we kind of break the cookie jar in a sense of like, you didn't know that was going to happen. So, you know, if you have a local comic shop, let them know we're coming. If the shop wants us there, we'll do our best to come down and meet you. We're going to be doing shows in the coming year. We're going to put a lot of weird shit on the internet. Like those things, share them with us. If this is something that you dig, we're committed to making more of this. We've put 5 years into this. We'll go as long as we have to.
I'm ready for 15 more.
Until we meet our demands.
Hell yeah. I am too, guys. Like, I mean, your guys' excitement about it and relationship. Because the one thing I've learned in talking to creative teams and just reading a ton of books, like when you guys are vibing and you're having fun on the project, I mean, that's
it comes through.
Yeah, that's when you see it in the page. It permeates. You know, that's in my opinion is like some of the magic of comic books, like this collaborative effort, all these people working together, and how much it can affect someone that's like totally apart from the whole experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, that's why I keep saying like all I want to do is just make cool shit with my friends, and I think that's because that's where the best stuff can come from. You know, like there's nothing better when you can feel it just like working between you. So
nice.
Thank you for saying that.
I can feel it, folks. Like, listen, you've listened to me for a long time now. I've done a lot of these episodes. You're listening to me now. You're going to listen to me again. But for real, like, it's a great fucking book. You need to pre-order it. I'll even help you. Juliet Uniform, November 241817. That's your diamond pre-order code. I think Magma's in Lunar now. So you can, if your shop goes through I don't have that code, but if they go through Lunar, so you get through Lunar, you get through previews. Please pre-order your comics. We always beg you. I always beg you. I'm not perfect. I don't do it all the time either. But you know what? If you want good books and you want the creators to succeed, it really helps. And if you want to make sure that your shop gets these good books, you got to tell them you want them. All right, because these guys aren't seers. Some of them are smart businessmen and good at what they do, but they can't read your goddamn mind. All right, so you got to let them know what you want. You want this book? Can I got to yell. I got to yell to get across to them. Joey and Sean, somebody's gonna put these kids over your knee. I'm it's a joke. Don't come for me. That's
yeah, we don't beat kids. And to your point,
we do put them in danger. However,
I love the people who think that this book is a comedy, and they don't know what's coming. It's a comedy in the way Twin Peaks is a comedy.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there's definitely a darkness. Like there was some quirky lightheartedness that I didn't really know what to expect, right? But there's fun to be had, but like there is a lingering something that I don't trust that generates worry and tension. We get that at the end of we see a glimpse of it at the end of the first issue, right? But yeah, you guys did a really good job of that blend. Very smart. I say this a lot, but I mean it. It's a great first issue, and I know how hard they are to do. You know, it's a tricky deal, especially when you're telling this sounds like a tricky kind of story. You know, it's not necessarily A to B. Something, there's cookie jars getting broke in issue 2. The best thing about cookie jars getting broke is that means that there's fucking cookies on the counter for his fat boy to eat. So you guys got me stoked for issue 2 is all I can say. I've kept you for a while. I so appreciate the time that both of you have given me. Finally getting to talk to you guys was super fun. Getting to read this new book from you guys is really exciting. I'm super happy for both of you.
You.
Like Sean, you've been doing some cool covers, man, but I love your interiors. So I'm stoked to see sequentials. It's a pretty book. I like the outfits. I like the uniform and everything. I mean, you can see it behind Sean right now, or if you're listening to the audio only, I guess that means you got to go buy the book. But yeah, everything is there for a really great first issue. I'm wearing it right now. Sean's been full get up. That's gonna be the new straight jacket. Can you help? Artist I've admired for a while. Can you help me get into this skin tight white latex leotard? We'll just do this right behind the table. I mean, hey, content is content, right? Joey's like, yeah, do it. Put it on TikTok while it's still there.
Joey seems, Joey is a very reserved fella, but this is the happiest I've ever seen him. It's like when Kirk knows Spock is having a good day.
I'll take it. This is the happiest I've ever felt. So
good, man. Real quick, because I am the polite host that I am, I want to make sure everybody knows where to follow you guys and where to keep track of you. So if you guys, preferred social media outlets, if you got any newsletters or websites or anything, e-shops, whatever, now's the time.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Joey Esposito and on Instagram at Joey Esposito, but with a little underscore before it, because the son of a bitch who has my name with my regular tag there just won't relinquish it. So I'm stuck with the underscore. Also, I have a newsletter called Something Good to Die For that you can sign up at joeyesposito.com.
It's a good title. I like that.
Thanks.
I'm on pretty much all the socials, mostly under @VonGormanArt on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Instagram as well. I'm on the Facebook. I'm also on the Blue Sky, just under Sean Von Gorman. And you can also just check out SeanVonGormanArt.com to see what I'm up to, where I'm going to be. We're going to be hitting a few Star Trek shows over the summer and a few different cons. We will be at San Diego in a very big presence. in a very big way with copies. We're going to be having advanced copies with a special cover just for San Diego. That's really, really wild. And we'll see you guys there.
Love more, hate less, read comics. Guys, thank you so much for everything.